Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi and welcome back to my video. As usual, my name is Muzaffar bin Muhammad Nazli and my mention number is 267813. Basically, this video is related to the lesson on theories or maybe framework and also models that can be really helpful or relevant to the MJD Manufacturing case. So without wasting any time, let's proceed this video. Let's go. First of all, related to the COVID-19 pandemic. At the end of the case, Emma Harris already says that before she analyzing the investment opportunities, she need to know first how long this COVID-19 pandemic might be last. So to know how long this pandemic might be last, let's take a look on this video.
On the 11th of March 2020, the World Health Organization declared that the coronavirus outbreak was officially a pandemic. Around the world, more than 18 million people are confirmed to have been infected and more than 700,000 have died. Both numbers are still rising. Most nations have instituted some measures to reduce the spread, like social distancing and lockdowns. The economic impact of the virus and the changes it has forced is severe. The World Bank estimates 60 million people could be pushed into extreme poverty due to the pandemic. But what is a pandemic? Well, a pandemic is an outbreak of an infectious disease where we see a significant and ongoing person-to-person spread in multiple countries around the world at the same time. But when will it be over? Honestly, no one knows. And the question everyone's wondering about is, how will it be over? Well, that's the million-dollar question. Obviously, not every country is going to get the virus under control at the same time, but as some begin to and transmission rates decrease, the end of the pandemic will be in sight.
So, after watching the previous video, to answer Emma Harris' question regarding how long might be COVID-19 will be last, the answer is nobody knows when COVID-19 pandemic might be end. Now, let's move on to the second question arise in this case, which is, should MJD Manufacturing embark on a new challenge, or should MJD Manufacturing invest in these new investment opportunities? To answer that question, let's take a look on this video.
Before meeting with patients, Dr. Katrina Kadir sanitizes and suits up in personal protective equipment, or PPE, to avoid catching coronavirus.
So every patient that comes through the doors is considered as positive. So until proof otherwise, so we need to make sure that we are fully prepared and protected when treating the patients.
The plastic face shield she's wearing is not from a factory. It was made in this home about 10 kilometers away. It's where William Elvis has turned his dining room into a production hub, with 8 3D printers making face shields. Elvis is part of a Facebook group with more than 500 volunteers producing PPE for frontliners across Malaysia. So far, his family has spent the equivalent of about $1,500 of their own money to make thousands of face shields for hospitals across the country.
No other people are more important than the frontliners. And if they need something, then I gotta produce it. That's my thinking.
Before this global health crisis started, Elvis already had one 3D printer. Friends recently pitched in to buy another 4 so he could produce more face shields. The other 3 printers belong to a community center Elvis co-founded but is currently closed. Elvis, a salesman at an e-learning company, has not worked much recently, so he spends his time producing PPE.
I got into this because I like to do a lot of tinkering and I love community. So these are 2 elements of bringing the tinkering and the community together into this field.
Elvis got designs for the face shields from the Facebook group. The process starts with spooled plastic filament. It's fed into a 3D printer where it heats up, melts, and is layered onto a heated plate and then shaped. Each machine produces 2 frames at a time in about an hour. Elvis's wife Miranda adds a plastic sheet to the frames, which provides the actual protection.
My motivation is this: I got to protect the front line at all costs, because if they go down, who's going to protect me? Who's going to protect us? And these are the things that they need it right now. They cannot wait for anything. So we have to step in and do our part.
I would like to say a big thank you to all these volunteers who have come up with a lot of donations and efforts in making sure that the frontliners are always well protected.
So the appreciation flows both ways, as volunteers help protect frontliners, so the frontliners can protect the public. For VOA News, Dave Grunebaum, Kuala Lumpur.
After watching the video, as Mr. Williams says, if he did not protect the frontliner, who will protect him and his family from COVID-19? So this shows that the demand for PPE is really high during this COVID-19 pandemic. So to answer the question whether should MJD Manufacturing embark on this new challenge, my personal answer is yes, MJD Manufacturing should embark on this new challenge. Let's move on to the last part of this lesson video, which is related to how to finance the potential investment. In the case already stated that MJD Manufacturing need to seek for external financing sources, maybe through bank debt or external equity investment. So when we talk about debt, this next video will explain in detail regarding the debt ratio.
In this video, I'm going to show you how to calculate a company's debt ratio. So the debt ratio is usually calculated by taking a company's total liabilities and dividing them by the total assets. This is going to tell you the percentage of assets that are being funded by debt. In other words, how highly leveraged is the company? The higher this number is, the more highly leveraged the company is, the more they're relying on debt to fund their assets. Now, bear in mind that not everything in total liabilities is always going to be considered what we would call debt. When we think of debt, we think of like borrowing money from a bank and so forth. But unearned revenue is a liability, but you wouldn't really think of that as debt. So sometimes people will take total debt, like short-term debt and long-term debt, and they'll use that in the numerator and then divide that by total assets. Okay, so I'm going to use this right here because this is pretty common, total liabilities divided by total assets, and I'm going to calculate the debt ratio for Twitter. So let's take a look at their balance sheet. You can see that their total liabilities, as of December 31st, 2018, they had over $3 billion in liabilities. And then in terms of total assets, Twitter had over $10 billion in assets. So you can see right there, about 3 billion divided by 10 billion, so it's going to be around 0.3, but let's do the calculations. So we take the $3.356978 billion, okay, because these were in thousands, that's why I keep saying billion, and we divide it by a little more than 10 billion, and that's going to give us 0.33. Sometimes, instead of as a decimal, sometimes people will express that as a percentage, and you could think about it as this. 33% of Twitter's assets are being funded by debt or liabilities, if you want to think about it like that.
So, if MJD were to take on more debt, Emma Harris need to prove that the company could handle it. And it was important to ensure the MJD did not exceed a debt ratio of 0.45, which was slightly above 0.42 average of MJD's competitors. Okay, I think that's all for this lesson video. So everyone, thank you for watching and stay safe. Assalamualaikum.